I am Colby Sumner, and this is America, Fog of War.
Pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic. Men's souls will be shaken with the violences of...
The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender.
I can hear you! I can hear you! The rest of the world hears you! And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of it.
We're told that on his body was found a diary. Under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure.
Now, before we get into that, one thing I do want to touch on here really quick is the Battle of Cape Esperance, which is a naval battle. It's a naval action that takes place on October 11th around midnight. It's part of resupplying. It's part of resupplying Guadalcanal with more troops. There's a regiment from the U.S. Army National Guard, the 164th Infantry Regiment, which is made up of guys from like the Dakotas and Minnesota, I believe.
Okay.
North and South Dakota and maybe Minnesota. And they're actually going to be the first Army unit to engage in offensive combat operations in World War II.
Interesting.
So, in both theaters, which is
Cool.
interesting. Anyways, that was off on a tangent. Part of getting that body of troops to the island and also trying to impede the Japanese from getting more troops on the island is kind of how this naval engagement takes place. But essentially, the big takeaway from this is that the American commander is he's very aggressive. He decides to attack the Japanese, the Imperial Japanese Navy at night, which no one has been doing up to this point. The last time we had a nighttime naval fight with them, they stuck it to us.
They had the advantage for some reason at that time.
Yeah. So it's just up to this point, you've had the Tokyo Express running at night, and then the American Navy coming in during the day, and we've just been alternating. Rear Admiral Norman Scott, who's in charge of this U.S. naval detachment that'll be engaged in this fight, he said he's had enough of it. We're not doing that anymore. And essentially, he gets into a position and intercepts one of two Japanese naval convoys. In the position he finds himself in, he actually ends up crossing the T on the Japanese, which is a very old naval term, crossing a T, like a capital T. And essentially, if you have a naval convoy, heading from south to north, and another naval convoy is able to get ahead of them and travel east to west or west to east, crossing their T, that means all the guns in your convoy can shoot straight down the line of your enemy ships without the enemy ships really being able to engage you, at least engage you as a team.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what he does. He within minutes he'll sink two ships, a cruiser and a destroyer. He'll heavily damage another cruiser. He'll mortally the Japanese admiral that's in charge of this Japanese task force. And he'll force the rest of those ships to abandon their mission, the ones that do make it through.
Good.
So needless to say, I mentioned that, if we had more time, we would cover it a little more in depth. But I did want to mention it because it signifies a few things. One, the 161st Infantry Regiment, U.S. Army Infantry Regiment, does make it onto the island. They're the first Army unit to make it onto the island as reinforcements. And that kind of ends the era of the Tokyo Express just having free reign. Right now they know, okay, they'll engage us at night, and they become a lot more cautious because of that. Now, at this point, there are roughly 20,000 Japanese troops on the island and roughly 23,000 American troops on the island.
All right.
the American defenses at this point, you have a defensive perimeter all the way around Henderson Field. That's the Lunga defenses. And then further west, at the mouth of the Matanikau, you have a small, like horseshoe-shaped defensive perimeter, but it doesn't connect with the Lunga defenses. There's a large gap in between the two. Just to give you kind of an idea of how the American forces are set up. And then the Japanese obviously are on the western side of that Matanikau River, operating out of Kokumbona and a few other places. The Japanese commanders had come up with this plan to send their 2nd Division on a large flanking attack to hit that southern perimeter of the Lunga defenses, pretty much in the same exact spot where Edson and his raiders fought the Battle of Edson's Ridge.
Okay.
Now that 2nd Division makes up about 7,000 men, and they'll be broken into 3 elements. You'll have a left wing, a right wing, and then a reserve element. And I'll give you the numbers here this time. I might refer to some of these unit numbers later, so just to make sure everybody kind of knows and has this information, at their disposal. The left wing is going to be made up of the 29th Infantry Regiment. Again, this is Japanese. This is the Japanese Army, just so everybody's tracking. But that's the 29th Infantry Regiment. That's commanded by Major General Nasu. The right wing will be made up of the 230th Infantry Regiment, initially commanded by Major General Kawaguchi, who did take part in the battle at Edson's Ridge as well. He is eventually he'll be relieved of command on this march, though, and replaced by another Japanese commander. And then you have that reserve force, which is made up of the 16th Infantry Regiment. And the overall Japanese division commander, his name is Lieutenant General Masao Maruyama, and he will be in command of this reserve element with the 16th Infantry Regiment. Now, the 3 elements are going to march southeast from Kokumbana, cross the Matanikau River, somewhere in the vicinity of that one log bridge, and make a very long march. I think it's even further south than Mount Austin. They're going to bypass Mount Austin to the south, and then make a long movement back to the north and hit that southern defensive line around Henderson Field. There would be a diversionary attack launched simultaneously against the Marines defending the mouth of the Matanikau River, trying to trick them and make them think, okay, this is where the main effort's coming from. And we'll see the Japanese come up with these very complex, multifaceted attacks, and it just doesn't seem to work for them. One reason or another, comms go down, you name it, XYZ. They tend to have problems, at least in this battle, with organizing and implementing these more complex attack plans.
It's just too many variables, really.
There's a lot of variables, and you're talking about a lot of guys over a long distance, and just a lot of stuff happens. Now, the way they planned about doing this, again, we've talked about the brutality of this terrain between where the Japanese are and where they want to go, especially the direction they're trying to take, the route they're trying to take. It's mountainous, jungle. It's terrible terrain. So it's roughly 15 miles long, this route they're trying to navigate. So
sounds awful.
Also numerous rivers and streams, muddy ravines. You got all kind of stuff. So between October 16th and 18th, the 2nd Division would begin their march, towards this attack position. The way they go about doing this is a few days before that, a company of Japanese engineers began to break a trail from the Matanikau towards the southern portion of the U.S. Lunga perimeter. So they got this company of engineers going a few days ahead of them, trying to cut a path through this jungle for them, build bridges where they can or whatever. Each soldier, now we're getting back to the infantry guys, the main body of this 2nd Division movement. Each soldier is ordered to carry all of their own personal gear, ammo, weapon, all that stuff, plus 1 artillery shell. Because
whose idea was that?
Well, they do that because they're actually carrying like their little mountain howitzers with them, right? Like they're carrying them. You can't take a vehicle back there, and obviously along the way, all of that gets thrown aside.
Bush
right?
monster.
Right. The artillery guns get cast aside. The rounds get cast aside. There's a guy that I watched a video of on YouTube. He lived on Guadalcanal for a while, and he's walked a lot of the battlefield. He said if you go out there today, chances are you'll see a artillery shell just sitting out there from Japanese troops just dropping them.
It's still that bad to this day. Nobody's going that far.
Mm-mm. Keep in mind, there is a time schedule for all of this, right? Because you have this diversionary attack that's supposed to be launched just before the main attack gets launched. The diversionary attack's taking place over at the Matanikau River. The main attack is that Edson Ridge area. And obviously you have to time that, right? You can't just be like, wait till you hear my guns. You're miles and miles and miles and miles away. The chances are you're not going to hear anything. So on two separate occasions, the Japanese 2nd Division commander is going to actually have to delay the attack. And when it comes time to delay the second time, he gets word back to everybody. But unfortunately, for one reason or another, and I've seen some accounts that they had already started their attack. I've seen accounts that they didn't have any any commo up and running. They didn't have any communications up and running. I don't really know the detail of how they didn't get the word, but the element of Japanese troops that are supposed to attack along the mouth of the Matanikau River don't get the word, and they launch their attack a full day before the main body, that Japanese 2nd Division is in place to attack the Marine line along Edson's Ridge. And so this gets us to the night of October 23rd and 24th. Now, give you an idea of this diversionary attack, it's going to be two infantry battalions, both from the 4th Infantry Regiment, and 9 Japanese tanks from their independent tank company would begin this assault. Unbeknownst to them, the Marine defenders there had really done a very astute job of setting up their defenses. They have multiple machine gun positions, 37 millimeter anti-tank guns, and even more importantly, like we had talked about, the 11th Marines had landed with the 7th Marines. They have artillery, and they had actually pre-registered artillery, artillery shot locations. That pre-registering means you will go, before a battle starts, you will call in and pre-register with an azimuth, like different places that you think the enemy might use as avenues of approach or as like cover or concealment, and the artillery will have those dialed in already so they can quickly switch from one to another, and they can make adjustments based off of those locations. You don't always have to give them a brand new thing. You can say adjust your fire off of this firing position this many degrees by this many degrees. You can adjust off of it. 40 artillery pieces had registered. They had registered,
ready to go
positions along the mouth of the Matanikau in preparation for a Japanese assault. So essentially, this group of Japanese soldiers, they get going, and they don't really get out of their mustering area. Like they don't actually step off onto the attack ever. Like they're forming up to attack still when this artillery comes in, and the Marines start engaging them. But there will be over 6,000 artillery shells fired into the area between Point Cruz and the Matanikau River. 6,000 in like a few hours.
That helps.
All 9 tanks will be almost immediately.
Get them, boys.
The Japanese will suffer heavy losses, and will be forced to withdraw shortly after 1 a.m. on October 24th. So again, they made it till 1 a.m. They very short amount of time, and that diversionary attack has been lost.
Okay, repel the assault.
Right now, this takes us to this main effort, the Japanese main effort with the 2nd Division. And they're in position. They have just marched for days through this very thick jungle. The men are exhausted. They've left all of their supporting arms, all their artillery and mortars and you name it. Like that, most of that stuff has been left deep in the jungle. on the night of the 24th to the 25th, the next day, they're ready to make their attack. Now, I'm going to take a minute to tell a few different aspects of this story here, but needless to say, initially, 1-7, Chesty Puller's 1-7, and H.H. Hannikin, who is the commander of 2-7, he had his battalion in this spot on the line as well. And Hannikin's an interesting guy, too. He's another old breed Marine. He, by the time of this battle, he had already earned a Medal of Honor and 2 Navy Crosses. So the guy is
Quite the career.
The guy is no joke. He he got his Medal of Honor for basically being Jason Bourne in the Banana Wars. He got into like Cognito, snuck into this rebel base camp, and then the leader, like point blank, and then got into a big fight where I think another 1,000 guerrillas were captured, or another 1,000 rebels were captured or wounded. The guy is, look into him. He's super interesting. He's unfortunately he gets outshined by Chesty in this story. But
these are the guys we have in charge of our Marines at this time. So,
right.
All right.
And so very capable, very capable. But now 2-7 is manning this position with 1-7. After that diversionary attack, they get pulled off the line and sent down to the Matanikau defenses because, again, like I mentioned, the Matanikau defenses sit apart from the rest of the main American defensive line. It's a U shape, and they want to try to link that southern edge of the U. They want to try to link that with the rest of our defensive line so that there's no gaps the Japanese can exploit and get into the rear of those guys or cut them off and surround them.
Yep.
And right now they're basically, they got their flank hanging in the wind is what they would call that. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of America Fog of War. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping us out and getting this show out to other people. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you give this video a like. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you stay up to date on all of our latest content. If you're looking for more of America Fog of War or just a way to help the show out, then please consider becoming a member over at our Patreon. For just $5 a month, you get early ad-free access to all of our content, as well as numerous other benefits, and it goes a long way in helping us maintain, honor, and uphold the legacy of the American warrior. Thank you so much, and as always, stay frosty. So, Vandergrift sends 2-7. He pulls them out of the line, along Edson's Ridge, and then sends them down to the Matanikau and places them. They're the first battalion placed in line to get that line extended to the rest of the American defensive perimeter. And this leaves Chesty Puller and 1st Battalion 7th Marines to defend an entire 2,500-yard long section of the line by themselves. He's got 700 guys. So think about it, 700 guys to defend 2,500 yards of thick jungle in a lot of places too. So you got to be close. You can't you can't be super spread out.
Right.
It's just they're in a tough position. And Chesty believes that the Japanese are going to attack his point in the line. They do a good job of showing a lot of this in the show The Pacific. How he pulls all of his NCOs in and listen, they're pulling 2-7 off the line. That leaves us here to do this. We're all that stands between us and the airfield. So, and I think they're going to hit us. So be ready. Well, in preparation for what might happen in his part of the line, Puller decides to send a guy named Sergeant Ralph Briggs with roughly 30 guys to set up a listening post about a mile south of 1-7's defensive perimeter, right? So essentially into enemy territory, right?
Yeah,
a mile into enemy territory. They show this in the Pacific as well.
Okay.
In that scene where you got the guy calling Chesty Puller saying, "You got the whole effing Jap army heading your way."
I haven't seen it in so many years.
It's right before the John Basilone scene. Anyways,
sounds
scary. It is scary, and the real story is even more terrifying. I think they did a good job in the movie, or in the show. But I mean, You put yourself in this guy's shoes and you think, holy crap, man. The Japanese, now again, dude, there's 7,000 Japanese. 7,000 total in this second division. I don't know how many are specifically passing him. Probably more like 2,500 or 3,000 are passing this position. But they spot Briggs and his guys, and they decide not to engage them because they don't want to get the attention from American artillery. They still are trying to sneak up and attack. So what you end up having is Briggs and these 30 dudes are in this listening post, and they are watching like lava flows, just streams of thousands of Japanese marching all around them. So that's how you get the guy calling. It's dark, and he's calling on that field telephone, whispering, "You got the whole effing Japanese army heading your way." Well, to him, I'm sure it looked that way.
Yeah, that's wow.
Well, Colonel Puller, Chesty, he's gonna get that call, and he's gonna say, okay, well, listen, when you can, pull out and try to make it back to A Company, which is where they're from. Well, dude, it's nighttime.
Doesn't seem like
they have thousands of Japanese troops between them and where they need to go, and there's only 30 of them.
Yeah, where do they go?
Right. Well, crazily enough, dude, a few of them, including Briggs, will make it back that night, undetected by the Japanese. Some of the other guys, it'll take them multiple days to make it back. Like they spend numerous hours hiding from Japanese or sneaking or having to lay still for. Dude, you talk about like that's a scary scenario.
Beyond stressful situation.
That's a scary scenario. But they do end up making it back, and this leads us into what will be known as the Battle of Henderson Field. Now, for this battle, I'm going to tell one particular story to give you an idea of what this battle is like. And again, this episode is unique because we are dealing with like the legends of legends when it comes to Marine Corps history and lore, right? Like there are maybe two other guys that are in this category, the same category as Chesty Puller and who I'm getting ready to talk about, which is John Basilone. Maybe two other guys. Dan Daly.
Yep.
Archibald Henderson, maybe. I don't know. I don't even know if Henderson would be in that category. It's hard to say.
It's just a name. Well, it's a name that we're very familiar with in our history of the Marine Corps. So it's like, well, if you're in that bunch, I don't know what they've all done, but it's important to mention everything that they have done.
Well, I look at it like he's what everybody, at least in the, I don't know, man. I don't know how the other MOSs are, but for infantry guys, he's like the epitome of what you strive to be.
Yes.
John Basilone, as an enlisted guy. Like that's what you're shooting for. And that has to do with more than just what he does here at Guadalcanal. It has to do with everything in his story. But to get into this action, Sergeant John Basilone he is assigned to D Company 17, but for this action, he will actually be attached to C Company. And he is manning him and his two machine gun sections, which he's in charge of. That's 4 guns total, 2 machine gun sections. They have the Browning Model 1917 A1, which is the 30 caliber machine gun with the big water cool barrel on it. It's got the big round thing on it. He's got 4 of those guns set up, protecting a pretty massive avenue of approach through this sector of the jungle. And he's right. He's in between. If you're looking at a map of this engagement, he is pretty much in the middle of between Coffin Corner and Edson's Ridge. They're 2 like predominant features that are known on this part of the line. His position is almost smack dab in the middle of those 2 areas. His machine guns are going to be set up about 30 yards apart, two in one position, 2 in another position, like we were talking about earlier. And him and his guys are sitting there waiting, right? And then eventually they get word, they get told, okay, we got word the Japanese are coming, so they're all ready to go. And just after 10 p.m., they could hear the Japanese cutting the barbed wire that they had in front of their position.
Oh,
You know, it's
close.
dark, man. It's in the jungle and it's dark. And
Sure.
you know, Barcelona is not up on a ridge. I've seen footage, like video footage of where his position is on Guadalcanal, and I know it probably looks different now than it did then. I'm sure they had cut down some of the vegetation. I knew they were cutting firing lanes at the time to try to, you know, be able to see the Japanese better. But dude, it is thick jungle. It's not, there ain't nothing open about it, you know?
It's not really what you think about if you think of World War II. You don't think so much jungle warfare, but just hellacious to say the least.
I mean, yeah,
Craziness.
They're gonna be, you know, it's dark. You're under a canopy, so it's dark, and there's a lot of crap out there that's moving on its own. You know, like leaves on trees, and you can't tell if it's a Japanese soldier or if it's just something you don't know.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, a little after 10, they hear the barbed wire being cut, and it's going to be about 130 men from the Japanese 9th Company of the 29th Infantry Regiment. And this poor company, over the course of the next little bit, is going to pretty much be devastated. I mean, just absolutely torn to pieces by John Barcelona. Because really, you know, within the first few minutes of this fight, John Barcelona has 2 machine gun sections. And so I want to say he's in charge of... I want to say he's in charge of, like, I think there might be 6 guys per section, something like that. 12 to 15 guys is who he has in his command. Within the first few minutes of this fight, it's going to be him and 2 other dudes.
That's intensity.
That's it. And they're going to be holding off like 200 or 300 guys by themselves. But needless to say, that it's, you know, the Japanese are here, they're coming. So Barcelona will tell his Marines to let the enemy get within 30 yards before opening fire. And sure enough, when they do, they go hot, right? They start laying into them. He would actually write, John Barcelona would actually write the noise. This is him speaking, quote, "The noise was terrific, and I could see the Japs leaping as they were hit by our bullets, screaming, yelling, and dying all at the same time. Still, they came only to fall back, twisting and going through all sorts of motions as we dispatched them to their honorable ancestors," end quote. I mean, he sounds like a savage even now, dude.
Well said at the end there.
As we dispatched them to their honorable ancestors. That's a line, dude. That's a line. But he's saying they're seeing them leaping and dancing. That's the 30 caliber rounds catching them, you know, catching them and moving them all over the place. They will end up, you know, they'll end up holding off this first attack, but eventually, like I said, a Marine of his is going to be coming, it will run over from the other machine gun position. Again, he's got the 2 machine gun positions. He's in one right now. The other one's 30 yards away. And one of the Marines from that position will run over and say, "Hey, both guns got taken out and all the guys are dead or wounded." Which every infantryman knows, when you're in a big gunfight, the last thing you can allow to happen is the machine gun to go down.
Yeah.
You always need the gun up. Even if you're not a machine gunner, get that gun up,
yep.
right? I mean, that is everybody in the infantry, at least when we were in, you learned how to use a saw, a 240, a 50 cal, and a Mark 19. Everybody had to be proficient with it.
Yep.
Because they're that important on a battlefield. They are game changers, right? And in an attack like this, you cannot allow part of that, you know, that intersecting field of fire. You can't allow part of that field of fire to be taken out. So John Barcelona grabs 2 men, the 2 guys that he has left, Ed Garland and John Powell, and they crawl through the rain towards this other position. And John Barcelona is carrying a machine gun with him. He takes one from that first position just in case they can't get anything up. At least each position will have 1 gun.
Okay.
While en route to this other position, the 3 Marines are going to run into a group of Japanese soldiers, and John Barcelona, just like the freaking show, dude, from the hip, will shoot all the Japanese in this group from the hip with that 30 caliber machine gun. I mean, that's crazy, dude.
Nothing's going to stop him. It's an urgent matter. He's going over there to get them guns up.
And I got a job to do, man.
Yeah, getting through this.
They end up making it to this other position, the right side gun position, and they'll see the 5 men that are dead and the 2 others that are injured in this machine gun position. As they're getting into this hole, the Japanese launch another charge, launch another assault. Using the machine gun he carried from the first hole, he places it on top of the sandbags, no tripod, no nothing, just like they show in the show, and starts laying into these Japanese soldiers. Eventually, he pushes them back, and it gives him a few minutes to inspect these disabled guns. The first gun that he looks at is going to be beyond repair. The second gun, however, he thought he could get put together if he took pieces from that first gun, right? He could take pieces from one, put it into the other, and salvage it. There's no light, right? He's having to do all this by feel and under a constant threat of a Japanese banzai charge. High stakes. Again, another group of Japanese will end up attacking, but this group, I think, are trying to actually do what at the time they would call infiltration tactics. The Japanese would try to sneak past the American lines, get in the rear of the lines, and then jump into foxholes with Marines and stuff. There's a group of Japanese soldiers that don't see him and his guys laying in this position. They're laying down, in this hole. They don't see him. Yeah. And this group of Japanese soldiers walk by him. And John Basilone sits up, pulls out his .45, and just, quietly sits up, pulls it out, and shoots them all. And then goes right back to
wrenching.
Yeah. It's not like in the movie they show him engaging with his pistol and it's like this, he's freaking out. No, he notices that there's some Japs walking by. He sits up, then right back down to work. I mean,
how about that? Little quick break for him.
Well,
back to work.
It's something that had to be handled. But dude, you can't convey the nerves that you probably. I mean, dude, for them to be close enough for that 45 to really do damage
in that thick of a jungle.
At nighttime, they got to be close.
Yeah,
and they have rifles and submachine guns and you're going to engage them with a pistol
in front of you, behind you, next to you.
No thanks. But hey, man, like I said, the epitome of a Marine here. Now. Eventually, Basilone would get that gun fixed and get it up and working again. From this point, you get, in the story, we're told that what Basilone does, there's two machine guns in this position. He brought one and repaired one, so they have those two guns set up now. And instead of having, his two guys manning the guns, what he would have them do is make sure that the guns stay loaded. So John Basilone would be firing from one machine gun. As soon as he went dry, he would roll to the other gun, 5 feet to the left or right. He'd roll over to the next gun without getting up. Either Ed Garland or John Powell would reload the gun he had just finished firing, make sure there was water in the tube and all that stuff, while John Basilone's firing the other machine gun. So there's never a lull in machine gun fire. He's just rolling back and forth from one to the other. And, just this guy, he just seemed like he was about the fight, dude. Like someone you want on your side. Kind of remind, you know who I think of when I think of John Basilone?
Who?
Alex Pomar.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense to me.
But
he was one, actually. He was a machine gunner first.
Yeah. But anyways, he just a little, just crazy enough. Not actually crazy. He's just crazy enough that you're like, man, I'm really glad that dude's on my side and not the other side. Yeah. But that being said, the enemy is going to continue to launch numerous charges throughout the night, and just like in the show, there's in the Pacific, there's a scene where John Basilone runs out and have to push over this stack of Japanese bodies that have been piling up to get clear fields of fire.
Yeah,
that is true. However, it's not John Basilone that runs out to do that. John Basilone actually orders Ed Garland to go out and do that, which good luck finding anything on Ed Garland and John Powell. I searched high and low, almost nothing on these two guys, and they make up a very large part of this story. And it's unfortunate I don't know more about their experience to be able to add it into this story. But Ed Garland will actually run out and push over that pile of Japanese bodies to give Basilone a clear field of fire, which is crazy. That's crazy to me.
Damage, a lot of carnage.
But that being said, at some point, these, to give you an idea of how much fire is taking place, between John Basilon's 4 guns, he's going to shoot roughly 120 to 160,000 rounds in one night.
Whoa.
So a lot of machine gun rounds.
And that's why it takes so long to unload these ships and stuff for days and nights, because imagine having all that ammo. It's like 30,000 per gun.
Yeah. In a few hours.
You got to hump it all out there. Nuts, dude.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I don't think they started with that much ammo out there, because eventually they do run out of ammunition, and Basilone has to make a run back for an ammo resupply. And he does this twice. The first ammo dump he runs to is about 1,000 yards, or I'm sorry, about 100 yards behind the line. He a mixture of crawling and running, he makes it back to this ammo supply point. The Japanese had not discovered it. Now, keep in mind, when he does this, he leaves Ed Garland and John Powell on the machine guns. He's running by himself from the machine gun position back to this ammo dump, and there's Japanese infiltrators between that machine gun position and the ammo resupply point. So he's running through the woods by himself, the jungle by himself, amidst little groups of Japanese soldiers here and there.
Bring your 45.
Just crazy, just absolutely crazy. He makes it back to this ammo resupply point though, and ends up, grabbing belts of ammunition. And the stories say that he got about 100 pounds worth of ammo. I mean, I believe that. I'm just saying I don't know for sure if that's true, but that's the story. He got about 100 pounds worth of 30 caliber ammo. The belts hanging over his shoulders and neck and stuff, and low crawls back to the machine gun position. Gets the guns resupplied, reloaded. They continue to engaging the Japanese, and eventually they are close to running out of ammunition again. And this time, they're also out of water, right? And with those water-cooled 30 caliber machine guns, it's vitally important to have the water, because the barrels will start melting if you don't.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you can change the barrel. That you do a barrel change drill with these, with a 240 or an M60. Even the later 30 calibers, the ones that are air cooled and not water cooled, you do a barrel change. You can't really change the barrel on these water cooled ones without like really, really taking the gun apart.
Right.
At one point in the fight, Basilone has one of his guys urinate into the barrel to make sure it has some kind of liquid in there to keep it cooled. And it, I guess, according to the story, it worked, but they're out of water now. So now he needs water and ammunition. So this time he runs back to an ammunition resupply point that's 600 yards behind the line.
Far out, dude.
That is super far. He goes by himself, gets ammo, gets water, runs back to this machine gun position, just in time for another banzai charge. And there's reports of the Japanese soldiers saying, Marines, you die, banzai, yelling across the jungle. But needless to say, man, he never gave up. The three of them held that sector of the line. Now, in all actuality, there's about 3,000 Japanese soldiers attacking that portion of the line. How many directly, came in direct contact with John Basilone? Truthfully, you'll never be able to actually tell. But they're fairly confident that ninth company, that first initial company, 130 to 200 guys strong, is pretty much wiped out solely because of John Basilone's guns.
Right.
When they count the bodies around their position, I think they count 35 Japanese, but that's in the immediate vicinity.
Right.
That ninth company is decimated. I think they have almost no survivors. He completely wipes them out, and they're the ones that are actually attacking that position. But they know that from Japanese records and American records. So it's just unbelievable. So yeah, man, for his actions in defense of the line there, the southern perimeter of the Lunga defenses, John Basilone was awarded the Medal of Honor.
Nice.
And yeah. He was
Well deserved.
hard charging, dude.
Yeah, hard charging.
Marine legend.
That he is, man.
Now, there is another attack the next day along that southern flank, but at some point, a battalion from the 164th Infantry Regiment, that Army unit that's just landed on Guadalcanal, will be brought in to bolster the line along with 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. So now they'll have the right amount of troops they need manning that position. The next day, most of the fighting will take place. There'll be a little bit of fighting taking place where John Basselon is on the line, and up Edson's Ridge. But the majority of the fighting on the next day will actually take place at an area called Coffin Corner, and the Japanese are leveled again. Most Japanese commanders are going to be killed in that attack, including the 16th, the Japanese 16th Regiment's commanding officer, so a regimental commander, and his entire staff are going to be killed in this assault on the night of the 25th to the 26th. And by 0800 on the 26th, the Japanese 2nd Division commander, Maruyama, is going to order a retreat. The Japanese casualties are 1,500 dead. Just there, around the line, it's 1,500 dead Japanese. U.S. casualties are 45 to 83 wounded.
There's no comparison to that, but still just unbelievable.
And unfortunately for the Japanese in the 2nd Division, they're going to lose a lot more guys on the march back,
Yeah. Well, they're suffering from their wounds and John Basselon's beat down.
Just ultimately, man, this island, as far as cost goes, this island is often overshadowed by a lot of the later fights: Tarawa, Peleolu, Okinawa, Iwo Jima. And I get that and I understand that, and I find different things obviously fascinating about those battles. But this battle is it is cram-packed with just awesome dudes doing awesome things.
Yeah.
At every level.
Well, it's so early on still. We're still so early in the Pacific that you learn a lot of things here.
Yeah.
Everybody, the infantry, logistics, Air Force, everything, the Navy. So, a learning lesson here.
Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick second to let you know a little bit more about America Fog of War and what we're trying to do with this channel. See, Brett and I both are Marine Corps combat veterans from the global war on terror. We fought in both Iraq and Afghanistan. We've also had an intense interest in the history of the American warrior. Now, it would be a lie to say that our opinions aren't somewhat biased, but after all of the study, the research, and things that we've seen with our own eyes, we are both confident that the greatest warrior the world has ever known is the American warrior. Whether we're talking about the American patriots that gained our independence from Great Britain, the blue-clad federal troops that won a victory at Gettysburg, or the Marines that raised the flag on Mount Suribachi, all of them have distinguished themselves far and above what's normally expected of a nation's warrior class. Citizen soldiers that have been willing to sacrifice all upon the altar of freedom. And today, that legacy seems somewhat threatened. It is our goal here to continue telling their stories, to uphold their legacy so that they're never forgotten, and that future generations of American warriors have ideals and standards to strive to reach. Thank you for your support, and as always, stay frosty.
All right, so just like everything else in this battle for Guadalcanal, there's numerous things happening all over the place at the same time. So going back a few days, so that was the 25th into the 26th. Now we're talking, let me go back to when you talked about that diversionary assault on the 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines at the Horseshoe by the Matanikau. That was about a day early than the other attack coming from the south. In that Horseshoe, you have, obviously, what you mentioned, 3-1 held off that assault with the artillery barrage. Coming around the Horseshoe, they're up by the mouth, so coming downriver and making the bend in the Horseshoe is 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. At that time, there was no action in their sector. So they're just kind of there. And then, as you mentioned, because, not only because, but there's, numerous reasons, after that attack, 2-7s redeployed over to the horseshoe. So you have 3-1 coming around the bend, you have 3-7, and then it extends across those lines is 2-7. So between 2-7 and 3-7 is about a 400-meter gap. They take up this position on a ridge line. It's like multiple ridges, like you said. There's always ridges and valleys, and almost like a cliff-like feature in front of them. But if you're looking at it, their far left lines is going to be their F company, and then in the middle is going to be their G company, and then coming up the other ridge is going to be their E company, Easy company, with that 400-meter gap there. But the other issue at this time is still there's still that humongous gap between this perimeter and the main Lunga perimeter. So,
which leaves them susceptible to all kind of terrible things if they leave it that way.
Yeah, can't leave it that way. So while this is happening, of course, at any point in this battle, Japanese, the 24th and 25th, are probing these positions. They actually do flank around them on each side.
Yeah,
and get behind the lines, doing things, jumping in wherever they can find, cutting communication lines, doing whatever it takes. But the Marines take care of them nonetheless. They rout them out. So by the end of the night on the 24th, 2-7s in place. The next day, by the 25th, you have 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. They come in along 2-7's flank. They close the gap to the Lunga perimeter. So we have that horseshoe kind of just extends all the way back. So everything's set up. The Matanikau perimeter is good. Meanwhile, at the time that battle was happening, as well as the Marines moving into this position, the Imperial Japanese Navy, they have been coming down through the slot, and they have an ultimate goal, really, is to bring some resupply their men, reinforcements. They want to move their guys further from Kokambuna to the east side over to the Kali Point. Well, at some point during this, I'll call it an invasion. It's an advancement, really, from the Japanese. They want to come in, blockade the U.S. Navy, and make all this stuff happen. They get word that Henderson Field, that they must have broke through maybe during the battle through
on the night of the 24th and the 25th.
Yeah, John Bassler. At some point at that time, word was passed along that Henderson Field was taken. The Japanese are like, okay.
Probably all kinds of excited.
Yeah, like they think something worked or something got through. Anyway, they abandon this plan because what happens is as things are progressing, they find out that the situation at Henderson Field is now unknown. So they don't move their troops from the west to the east. They really just kind of bring the reinforcements in, and then they start a naval bombardment of Henderson Airfield there. Naval and Air Forces from both sides, Cactus Air Force, everybody is going to respond to this, and there's going to be fighting over this area, over the Iron Bottom Sound, and pretty much a large air battle is going to take place throughout the rest of the day. So you have, in 6 waves, you have 82 bombers, and then you also have fighters coming from carriers. They're going to attack Cactus Air Force, the Marines. They're going to take care of these guys with their aircraft fire. They're going to make a good job of it. By the end of the day, Japanese, they lose 11 fighters, 2 bombers, 1 recon aircraft, and 2 American Wildcats were damaged in fighting. Both pilots survived.
That's one thing. I don't know if we actually pointed this out in the Coral Sea episode and the Midway episode or not. But this is one thing. This is one area where America seems to do way better at than the Japanese do, and it's recovering its pilots, its air crews, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's naval or air or Marine Corps or the Army Air Corps, for whatever reason, let's just say each side had 10 aircraft shot down.
Yeah.
Typically, the way things, and listen, this is just me like putting things into like Barney-style nutshell type of view, but there's more truth to this than falsehood. Is if each side lost 10 aircraft, the Japanese would lose 10 pilots. The Americans might lose 4 pilots.
Yeah,
because they would somehow they get those pilots back, and then all they have to do is put that pilot in another plane, right? And now you still have an experienced pilot or air crew if it's more than a one-man crew to man an aircraft to take into battle against the Japanese. Which, listen, we stress it a lot on this show, but experience freaking matters, man.
Big time.
I guarantee you, if you were to go over to Ukraine right now and fight the guys that are on the line right now versus, get engaged. Let's say you could go back in time and fight some guys in the initial Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Completely different.
I bet it is a night and day different fight. How good each side is at what they're doing. A night and day.
Oh my
God. For whatever reason, the Americans are good at that. They're good at picking up their downed pilots.
Yeah. Yeah, just learning fire maneuver, setting it. You can practice it all day, but doing it actually under fire with a maneuver element and setting a base fire, it's night and day how quick things change. So, but in any event, the Marines that day during that attack, they called it Dugout Sunday because they never left their foxholes. They really had a show to watch while the Marines at the Lunga Perimeter and the Cactus Air Force took care of things. Now, that's all day. We cruise into the night. So now we're on the 25th, coming into the morning of the 26th. So the same guys you talked about earlier, elements from the 16th and 29th Infantry Regiments are going to also be in this attack. Now, in addition to that those many elements of those Japanese from the 16th and the 29th, also you have the 124th Infantry Regiment under the command of Oka. I've mentioned him before in previous episodes. In the pitch black of the jungle at night, they're in there to the south of these Marines, and everybody's dug into their foxholes. It's going to be like the attack. This is Japan. This is like the next day from the attack that you mentioned. They're also coming in to take this airfield, and they're going to come in right in a sector where 27 F Company 27 is set up on the ridge on their farthest east perimeter, 3-5 further to their left. But then you're going to have Sergeant Mitchell Page in his machine gun section.
Oh, I'm excited about this. I'll be honest.
Next to Fox Company.
I'll be honest with you, dude. I just have to tell the listeners and the viewers this. This is just being 100% true. I've already stressed how big of a deal John Basilone is to all Marines. But I'm going to be honest. Mitchell Page, who I had never heard of until doing this research for this podcast, his Medal of Honor story is crazier to me than John Basilone's. I mean, it's crazy. His story is crazy, and I'm very excited for you to tell it.
It is. All of this is so crazy. So this attack's going to kick off at 3 a.m., but he had something similar to John Basilone with the wire, the single strand of wire. Something to do with cartridges inside of like old C rations.
Making noise. Rattle. We do that nowadays too.
Yeah. He had something similar set up. So he's tasked with, he's like, him and his guys are between F Company and G Company. And he's tasked with covering everything in front of F Company. And anyway, Japanese launched their attack right up this way. So like I said, 3 a.m., everything opens up, machine guns, rifle fire. They're mowing down waves of these enemy Imperial soldiers, just charging wave after wave, thousands of them. But they just ignore their losses and just continue on pushing, assaulting through. Now, as the fighting went on throughout the night, F Company Marines, they're taking horrible casualties up on this crest of this ridge there. And they're going to eventually... They're going to fall back over the backside of the crest of the hill. Now, Page and his machine gun section, they don't know. Nobody knows this. Nobody communicates that F Company has departed their position. So they're basically spread out in their sections, and they're going to be
out there by themselves,
surrounded. Yeah. So he's doing the same thing. Now, just think of this being at nighttime. You have this assault going on. You have Japanese coming at you. He's maneuvering from gun to gun. They're also popping flares. The Japanese are popping flares, so people can see each other sometimes. What happens is, as he's moving from gun to gun, he's got a 45 with him. And each time he gets to a position, he finds his guys either killed or wounded as he gets to the gun. If his guys are not already dead, he's grabbing these guys and basically holding on to them for their last breath is how he finds his Marines in each of these positions.
Because he's the platoon sergeant, right?
Yeah, he's the section leader of he's the sergeant there.
Dude, how heartbreaking would that be, man? Everyone.
Yeah, and he has no idea that his left flank is completely fallen, and he's just running by, keeping these guns up. You know, the wounded are trying to keep the guns up, but when he gets to these positions, he'll end up firing the gun for a while, you know, doing what damage he can, and then move on to the next gun and check on his guys there. So as he's running across, he's, you know, blasting Japanese guys that he basically runs into his 45. When he runs out of ammo for that, chucks it. He's making his way to one of his gun positions, and he something comes out of the left side, something right there.
Yeah.
The Japanese soldier attempting to ram a bayonet into his throat. He sees it, stiff arms the bayonet, knocks that guy off balance or whatever. And with his other hand, he draws the only weapon that he has, his K-bar.
The K-bar. Hey guys, the next part of this episode gets pretty graphic. So to ensure that this episode doesn't get taken down or demonetized, you'll have to go over to our Patreon to hear the complete, uncensored version. Visit patreon.com/America Fog of War and become a member for just $5 a month. You'll get access to all of our content early, ad-free, and uncensored. Make sure you don't miss any of the story. And as always, stay frosty.
I think hey might be a better idea to start. Hey, thanks for watching our show. If you're looking to get more out of America... Here we go. Hey, thanks for tuning in to America Fog of... Hey, thanks for watching our show. If you're looking to get more out of America Fog of War, or if you're trying to get more of America Fog of War, or are looking... Hey, thanks for tuning into our show. If you are looking to get more from America Fog of War, or are looking for a way to help us, or you're just looking to help... Recut. If you're trying to get... If you want more content from America Fog of War, or you're looking for a way to support the show, consider becoming a Patreon. Wait, a Patreon? It's a patron. Instead of consider becoming a Patreon, and consider joining our Patreon. Okay. For just $5 a month, you can... For just $5 a month, you can submit questions to be answered on air. Log into a monthly Zoom call with either Colby or myself to discuss related topics, to discuss U.S. military history or any topic related to it, and gain early ad-free access to all of our content. And gain early ad-free content to all of our content. And gain early ad-free content to all of our access content. And gain redo. Visit patreon.com/America Fog of War, or click the link in our description and help us to maintain the legacy, to help us honor the legacy of the American warrior. Hey, I'm not that good at this. If you like the show, join the Patreon for $5 a month. Thank you. For his actions that night, on the 26th of October, 1942, he was later awarded the Medal of Honor. Now, by December of that same year, he gets a battlefield commission. He's promoted to second lieutenant.
This is interesting. John Basilone is also offered a battlefield commission, and he turns it down.
Wonder why. It's such a rare thing. I wonder why.
I think he just wanted to be a machine gunner. He wanted to be an enlisted guy. I get that. I get that because the officer route eventually takes you away from that.
Yeah.
That environment. The enlisted route in the infantry very rarely takes you away from that environment, especially in conventional war like World War II. Like the battalion sergeant major is still going to be down there getting after it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I get it. I get it. But I don't think Basilone, I don't think he wanted any special attention. Mitchell Page, I probably didn't want it either. But
True.
That's obviously a great career move. Like, yeah, let me take this battlefield commission. Chesty took it.
Yeah.
Hannikin, the other, the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marine CO took it too.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know why, but he was offered it. He turned it down.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting how everyone's experience may vary. Even being in such close proximity to each other, the story is what happens after the fact is always different. But yeah, so in his sector, they had, after the fact, counted some 700 casualties for the Japanese soldiers there, and the Marines had suffered a total of 59 casualties. I'm not saying that whole battle or the whole night, but just in that sector there. So again, numbers that don't really match up, but are in the favor of the Marines fighting in that area, even though it was tough and things, certain positions may have been temporarily lost for the moment. It was gained back, but no comparison with it.
I think a part of that too is at this point in the war, the Japanese are doing banzai charges. I think it doesn't take long. That changes. It's definitely different when they land on Peleliu, for instance, later on. The guys that talk about that battle, they're like, there's no banzai charges. They're not just like suicidally doing frontal assaults like mass charges. He's like the Japanese resistance was very well planned out and very well executed in how they did things.
Oh, sure, I'm sure.
So but the banzai charge factor could be playing a role in those statistics also. But I mean, you regardless. Yeah, you have to tip your hat to, these guys defending the line, especially guys like Mitchell Page, dude, he did an incredible thing.
Yeah.
That's an act of I think this is going to sound ridiculous phrasing it this way, but I do believe this. I think it would be easier to, maybe not to beat Michael Jordan's records, like how many championships he's won and stuff. But I think your likelihood of being able to do that in your life is higher than the likelihood you could succeed trying to do what Mitchell Page did if you were to plan it out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like statistically, I think truthfully, I think, dude, it's
crazy comparison, but
obviously they're both crazy feats. I'm not taking anything away from Michael Jordan, but truthfully, like he's being charged. His position is surrounded by at least a battalion of Japanese troops, and he's there by himself. He's by himself, dude.
Completely by himself,
and just kicks butt. Like, it's one thing to be there by yourself and survive, but to be there by yourself, hold the line, and then charge the Japanese and push them back by yourself.
He does everything.
Get out, dude. Like, that's unreal. That's unreal. Crazy.
In the darkness of the night.
God, I wouldn't want to fight him.
It's evil. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Savage individual.
I would not want to fight that Joker, man.
That's probably why they only spend a little bit of time in the States, and then he's like, I want to go back. I feel weird here. Back in the action with the boys.
Yeah.
Back into the Marine Corps.
But
yeah, Well,
that brings us to the end of that battle, though. I mean, there's not a 2-day engagement there like there is over at over by Edson's Ridge and stuff.
Right. So with these assaults being repulsed, whatever you want to call it, Henderson Field lives on another day because the amount of Imperial soldiers that were, taken out.
This is also the last time the Japanese will conduct an offensive operation in this campaign.
Oh, yeah. I have to touch on something because speaking of that, not only on the ground, but also in the air, because also happening this same day on the 26th is the battle for the Santa Cruz Islands. So, as we know, an overall command of ground forces is Hayataki. In charge of the aircraft and navies is Yamamoto. And at this time, they're like, not far parked off, they're not far from Guadalcanal. Like nobody ever went away, but William Halsey, in charge of our American naval carrier groups also, they're kind of looking for each other at this time. And the plan for the Japanese Navy, beat the Allied naval forces, especially, take out some carriers. And that was maybe these naval carriers and stuff and Air Force is going to draw out, the ground invasion is going to draw American ships out. Certainly wasn't the case. So, but for this battle on this day, it's going to be 2 American carriers versus 4 Imperial Japanese Navy carriers.
Crazy.
So it's a big difference here on this one. In a nutshell, they do find each other. They engage in aerial combat. Huge amounts of warships. Ships are damaged. The American Navy does take quite a bit of a beating. The Enterprise is very heavily damaged, but will survive. At the end of the battle there, the Hornet is damaged so bad they attempt to tow it and salvage it, but it sinks the next day. Her crew suffered 111 killed in action and 108 wounded during just this day on the 26th of this battle. And then the ship was gone. The Japanese didn't lose any ships, but they did have 2 destroyers and 3 of their carriers were damaged. They were forced to retire as well. So the Americans are going this way. The Japanese are going this way. But here's the difference. And this is going to play a major role also, like you were saying, for major offensive action. 20 U.S. planes were lost in this battle, for the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, while the Japanese lost 100 planes. So now we're talking about 20 experienced pilots, carrier-based pilots versus 100. That's the difference. So even though it seemed like a tactical victory for Japanese, we have a whole carrier sunk. It's actually the irreplaceable air crews that they're not able to replace.
That's going to make a big impact.
Yeah. So, the Japanese carriers, even though they're still prevalent, they're still there. They don't play any further significant role in this Guadalcanal campaign. So things are just slowly, there's still a huge fight. There's still a lot of fighting to go, which is overlooked in later parts of Guadalcanal. But at this time, the ground forces are beaten back. The naval and air forces are mostly beaten back. Bit of a game changer over the compared to the last 2 months.
Yeah,
of fighting at Guadalcanal. So, and that runs us all the way through the end of October.
Man, yeah. It's listen, and there's still more to go. There's still more to go. Yep. Real quick, we've been talking about the Marine Corps so much. I'm going to mention this before we finish up the episode here. But in that second day of fighting, after over on the line where John Basilone does his Medal of Honor action on that second day, a little bit on that first night, but mostly on that second day, the Army is really gonna that 164th Infantry Regiment.
Yeah,
they're really gonna show themselves capable. I believe Chesty Puller will say, because again, they're all from the Dakota, like the Dakotas and Minnesota or something, something like that, Midwestern area, and he'll say something along the lines of like those farm boys sure can fight, or something like that. But they called them. They actually ended up calling themselves the 164th Marines. Because they felt like they're part of the 1st Marine Division. Is what they felt like. They're the only Army unit there.
Yeah.
And at one point in the fighting, that 2-day battle over there on the near Edson's Ridge on the Lunga defenses, there will be a specific battalion from the 164th will come up to reinforce Chesty Puller's line. And you got to give kudos to whoever that Army battalion commander was, because they show up. It's nighttime. It's middle of the night. And Puller looks at him and says, listen, I don't know if you have seniority over me or if I have seniority over you, but this is my area, so I'll be in charge. And like, kudos to that Army battalion commander, because he said, yeah, all right, you're in charge. Where do you want me to place these guys? And they end up placing one soldier in every hole with a Marine.
Oh, how about that?
1-on-1. I don't know exactly where on the line this takes place. I know it's in that area, but this is just another little tidbit I picked up from the story. And we talked so much about the Marine Corps in the last few episodes. You got to give the Army credit where the credit is due. And later on, they're going to be prominent in the remainder of the fighting that's to come. So
absolutely.
That being said, man, been a great time.
Yes.
Enjoyed it.
Always, yep.
Make sure you tune in 2 weeks from now for the next installment of In the Shadow of the Rising Sun, and finish out the story of Guadalcanal with us and see what happens. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure you subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star review. It does a lot at helping us out. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the like button and that notification bell so you can, be notified when we do release new content, and you can be the first to see it. Other than that, if you really, are interested in helping out the show and you're a big fan and you want to do what you can, please consider joining our Patreon. It's $5 a month, and you get early ad-free access to all of our episodes, as well as a bunch of other content that we've been working on and producing in the last few months. So thank you again for tuning in, and as always, stay frosty.